Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about the latest episode of Daredevil Born Again. It was called Sic Semper Systema, which means thus always to the system. As it starts, Matt gets a report from a doctor about White Tiger's murder, and it turns out that the bullet casing was not recovered at the crime scene. Tiger's niece shows up and surmises while talking to Matt that the cops killed him and is enraged about it. Matt then says the killer will be found. Fisk's underling, Daniel, gets in a cab with some friends after partying at a club, wherein he blurted out some information about Fisk's plans as mayor. Fisk and his wife have a therapy session and talk about her fling, which happened when Fisk was away, much to Fisk's dismay, who gets a bit emotional and says he had a confrontation with the other man, but that he didn't harm him. Then, at the therapist's request, Vanessa talks with the therapist alone, and therapist asks her if Fisk is harming her, which Vanessa denies. Matt then meets with a pro bono client who seems to have stolen some fiddle-faddle, which the man denies and asks if it could have been a Skrull, which was kind of funny. Matt says no, and that he'll try to get the man probation, though the DA is determined to give him 35 days given his criminal record, until Matt gets her down to 10 days before he runs into the cop he thinks killed Tiger, though his heartbeat seems to indicate that he didn't. Fisk plans to revitalize a port but wants to go faster than is politically feasible before he's talked back down to earth by someone from his office. Matt delivers the news of his client's sentence to him, and he's very displeased with it. Fisk visits the school as negative press comes his way about how he wants to move in a direction on sanitation that will lock out the union sanitation workers before he visits a Latvian cultural center, after which Daniel confesses to accidentally leaking the information that got him the bad press. But Fisk is lenient with him after he profusely apologizes, but pretty much threatens his life if it happens again. With his heightened hearing, Matt finds the casing of the bullet that killed White Tiger at the crime scene and goes looking for Frank Castle, whose symbol is on the casing, whom he finds and is almost killed by, before they argue about Frank's unwillingness to use his skills for good, and Matt's not having done anything about Foggy's murder. Matt breaks down and tells Frank neither of them could ever live up to Foggy's decency. Matt then goes home to his girlfriend, who is Fisk's counselor, don't forget, and they get frisky, after which Matt visits and practices with his Daredevil gear, as Fisk has dinner at a table in a dungeon-type room where it seems he's holding the now long-bearded Adam, who Vanessa cheated on him with. As the episode ends, we see that Muse is torturing a man in a dungeon of his own. And that's where the episode ended. So I continue to like this show. I think that it has all the gravitas, or a lot of the gravitas, of the original series that aired on Netflix. I think tonally, it's basically the same show. It's like they never had a break between the old show and this show. John Barenthal was excellent as Punisher in this episode, the best I've ever seen him probably in the role. And the actor who played the man who stole the fiddle-faddle was really good in his brief role. And I suspect he's going to show up later. I don't think that this whole thing about him is just a filler. I think that it's going to go somewhere. I think we're going to see that guy again. I continue to find Vincent D'Onofrio's acting to be above reproach. He's fantastic in the part. He's adding new dimensions to the character, and I continue to like Wilson Fisk as a person, even though he's a murderer. I've said before in my reviews that even though he's a stone cold killer and a hell of a bastard, that I like him as a person because he does have some, if you want to call them ethics, he does have some redeeming human qualities that show up regularly. But I also am repulsed by him because he's this crazy murderer, or at least he was. Nowadays, he's the mayor, and he really is trying to do right by the city. I think he genuinely cares about the city. He seems very intent on doing good things for the city, and it's hard not to like that. So I like it. I like that he absolutely loves his wife. I think that's fantastic. I also like that he is, in fact, still the old Fisk underneath it all, which we didn't really see on this show until this episode, where we know he's now holding the man who had an affair with his wife, whom he said he didn't harm, which I guess is technically true, unless you consider holding someone against their will harmful. And so the ending of this episode just really grabbed me, because Fisk doesn't say a word, but we just see this man behind bars begging Fisk to let him go or even talk to him, which Fisk isn't doing. He just sits there eating. And I just thought that was creepy as hell. And in fact, it reminded me of one of the craziest twist endings to a movie that I've ever seen. That movie being The Secret in Their Eyes with Julia Roberts. Because, and this is a major spoiler if you haven't seen the movie, so you might want to mute the volume or whatever. But she plays a character whose daughter was murdered. And the main plot of the movie takes place years and years after her death and revolves around still trying to figure out who the killer was. Except we find out in the end that Julia Roberts had decided a long time ago who the killer was, kidnapped him and held him captive, bringing him meals, but never speaking to him. And he's in a cell, like in her barn, in ragged clothes with a long ass beard. And this fact is discovered by one of Julia Roberts' friends, who's either a fellow reporter or a cop, I can't remember. And when he sees what the man has become, a disheveled, just shell of a person, who says to the man, please just beg her to talk to me, and just is overcome with horror as he takes out his gun and ends the man's life, ending his torture, essentially. And it just really brought that movie back for me, even though this guy doesn't get shot and probably won't get shot. But it just brought back the horror of that moment where you discover that this guy's been held captive for years and hasn't even been spoken to and hasn't seen until that moment more than one person in that whole time. So it just creeped me out. And it's totally a Fisk thing to do. Anyway, I do think the show is really good. I still, of course, miss Foggy and Karen. And, we're 4 episodes in now and we haven't seen Daredevil. I think that's a mistake. Like, I don't know what they're waiting for. It seems like maybe Matt's gearing up to put the outfit back on, so maybe we'll get that in episode 5. But I don't know. They're dragging their feet, man, and it kind of bugs me. I kind of want to see some Daredevil. So I like the show. I think it's very close to being the show it was on Netflix, but it's just missing that little bit more, I guess you could say juice, where there's no Karen, no Foggy, and so far no Daredevil. But I like it. I don't understand why it's not doing well. At least I'm reading that it's not doing well, that it's doing worse than Echo and worse than Agatha, which is disappointing. But hey, they're moving forward with season 2. We're getting set pictures leaked online. So we're going to get at least one more season, it looks like. But we've got a long way to go before we get there. Several more episodes of season 1. And hopefully we see Daredevil sooner rather than later in the rest of this season. But that's really it. I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back with another video soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.